Now, we all know that the best time to shoot is either in the early morning or the late afternoon, but unfortunately, it's hard to find the time for the things that you love, and often that means that you're out shooting in less than ideal light conditions. The good news is that by paying attention to a couple of factors in the field and making a few little tweaks and a few simple hacks, we can still come home with a beautiful photo that doesn't scream wrong light. Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Sonia from Flying Parrot Photography, helping you shoot with creative confidence and sharing my tips and tricks for bird and nature photography. We're going to head out into the field so I can show you what I look for and what I avoid to maximize my field time. You probably already know that going out on partly cloudy or overcast days extends your shooting time and softens the light. So this video is going to focus on those clear sunny days. Those days where you really want to be out in the sunshine, but the bright light can lead to disappointing results. After a late start, I'm in the field at 9:30 a.m. It's a beautiful day and there's not a cloud in the sky. One of the first considerations is choosing the right location. Provided it's not right in the middle of the day, I like to stick to open areas with light foliage. This grassy field is perfect. The birds are down lower and I can avoid bright sky in the background. I'll talk about some other good location choices later in the video. Although shooting around the grasses can be a little tricky, the thin blades hardly leave any shadow and give a lovely soft effect. I always look for light backgrounds, which help soften the contrast and make the whole image easier on the eyes. In wooded areas, look for fine branches that don't throw a lot of shadows. I'll often wait around the right setting and see who comes by if I know I can get a good shot there. We all know the general rule: keep the sun behind you when the light is strong. But if you really want to level up your lighting, it's not just about having the sun at your back, it's about lining up the sun, your camera, and your subject in a straight line. Even being just a metre or two off to one side can throw in unwanted shadows or uneven lighting. But when you get that alignment just right, it's like switching on a stage spotlight, and your subject is lit beautifully and the whole image pops. A really easy way to get this right every time is to face towards your shadow when shooting. You will be amazed at the difference this technique makes. Our next go-to for shooting outside of optimum times is to head under some trees and take advantage of filtered light. What we're looking for in these locations is areas where the light is softly dappled, with a nice even canopy of leaves overhead. Try and avoid areas that are too dark with a lot of branches. It can be very difficult to get the light placement right. The challenge under trees is working around the very bright and very dark areas and changing settings fast enough. One option is to use auto ISO. I prefer not to do this due to the radically high ISO it can swing to. Instead, I shoot for image quality by switching to spot metering and trying to catch my subjects in the shade, which can give a relatively soft effect even in the middle of the day. If you're lucky, a little bit of sun might land in the right spot and illuminate your subject. Pay extra attention to your backgrounds in this situation, as those bright spots you don't notice at the time can ruin an otherwise lovely image. I also avoid shooting up towards the sky, as it tends to zap the colour out of the image and can cause chromatic aberration, where the light extends beyond your camera's dynamic range, causing a halo effect. Like always with bird photography, it does require a little extra patience and attention to detail. But with perseverance, you can still get a lovely image even in the middle of the day. Shooting shorebirds can yield surprisingly good results on bright days, with reflected light from the sand working to your advantage. Again, I use my sun alignment technique to keep shadows to a minimum. Plus, get down nice and low to keep bright blue sky out of the equation. A key point to remember here is to really watch for overblown highlights, especially when photographing birds with white feathers. You might also like to try incorporating the shadow into the story. If you're photographing birds on a pond or lake, it's not always possible to use the straight line positioning technique, as you're usually limited with where you can get to. Instead, wait until they swim over to the reflected area from the bank, rather than shooting them in the brighter parts of the water where the sky is reflected. It makes a huge difference, adding soft colour and richness to the composition. Wait for the bird's eye to be in the sun and aim for an eye catch. Try and avoid shooting when the face is in shade, and see if you can capture a tiny little extra, like a water droplet. Even with these techniques on your side, there still may come a time when the light isn't conducive to getting a good shot, usually in the summer when the sun is stronger, especially here in Australia. Photos might start to look like the colour is drained away. There's a lack of eye catches, and feathers can appear overly shiny with a lot of reflected light. There's very strong contrast and deep shadows. These issues can be difficult to successfully correct in post-processing, so it's a good time to take a break for a couple of hours. I also tend to avoid shooting birds in flight outside of optimal light times. It's tricky to find the balance between big shadows and bright highlights. You usually end up with a loss of detail under the wings unless you get the timing perfect, and the bright blue sky tends to dominate the scene. I just practice on passing birds, getting the focus locked on without taking the shot. Now let's have a look at some simple editing. I use my usual workflow process as detailed in my simple Speedy Editing video, linked above and in the description. After my usual quick edit, trimming back highlights and contrast and lifting shadows, using a little dehaze tool, our grebe is still experiencing a common problem with midday shots, which is lacking in a little bit of colour. Here's where we can use the Vibrance tool, which strengthens the midtones, to add some more punch. It's only a subtle difference, but it's just brought a little bit more life into the image. Couple more little adjustments and I think that will do it. And here's our before shot, and you can see the second shot just has so much more life in it thanks to the added vibrance. Another issue we might run into is some overexposed areas. Our birds should be nicely exposed due to using spot metering, but this can mean other areas get blown out and are distracting, like the stems here. So I've applied a mask using the brush tool and selectively trimmed back the exposure in that area only, which works a treat. Now I do tend to use minimal editing because I personally like a more natural style, but how you do this is entirely up to you. You can go much further with your edits than I do. It's all about personal choice and developing your own style. And here's our before and after. There's not a huge difference here, just a little bit more richness in the colour and removing those overblown highlights. Another thing to keep an eye on is white balance. I generally use the presets, but I find the sunny setting a bit too cool and tend to favour the cloudy setting. If you're shooting in full RAW, the in-camera white balance doesn't actually affect your image, and you can change it in editing without degrading image quality. But keep in mind, if you shoot JPEG, the white balance is baked in, so you need to get it right in camera. Due to using the cloudy preset, we can see with this particular image it is too warm, so it's just a matter of making a small adjustment, adding some more blue via the slider. I use the white parts of the image to gauge how far I need to go with this, looking to get a nice warm white without an obvious colour cast. So that's looking a lot more natural to me and not so yellow, but again, personal choice is key here. You may prefer a warmer or cooler image, but it's worth having a tweak to see how it looks either way. It is the attention to small detail that adds up to a polished image. Well, I've finished my video and I'm off to enjoy the sunshine. Let me know in the comments if you have any other tips for midday shooting. Happy birding and talk to you soon.